Leela stepped into the weathered town of Dust Hollow, blood crusting at the edge of her lip, a tarnished silver band clinging to her slender finger. She had no cart trailing her, no kin by her side, just a frayed cloak draped around her like the last echo of a life that had faded away. Folks gawked as she trudged down the main street. They hurled names she never invited. They muttered she was hexed, that her late husband must have ended his own life to flee her shadow. But the truth was different. Her husband had perished in a flood 4 winters back. She'd waited for him in a freezing shack with 1 candle and a single rabbit for sustenance. She buried his coat when hope crumbled into quiet. Then she kept moving until her boots brought her here. Hey folks listening out there, where are you tuning in from today? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know where this story's reaching you. Dust Hollow wasn't a haven for hearts already scarred. The streets were jagged with spite. People there thought cruelty was power. They said a stranger who stayed silent must be hiding something wicked. They lied because lies came easy. The first week, a young girl splashed a pail of muddy water on Leela's skirt. The second week, the storekeeper struck her for questioning her shorted change. The third week, someone smeared grime on the pew where she tried to sit. The preacher turned his head. The whole town turned their heads. Leela slept behind the old cooper shop in a half-rotted lean-to. Cold nights sliced her skin like shattered glass. Each dawn she scrambled for coins to survive. She scrubbed boards, skinned game, cleaned rooms in the tavern where weary women smiled through their pain. Every task ended with bruises and harsh words. Every night she walked back with her jaw clenched tight to keep tears at bay. Folks didn't strike her at first. They struck her with their eyes, cold and cruel. Then came the shoves, then the bottles, then fists, always in front of others, always with laughter trailing her pain. Still, she stood quiet. A woman with no one learns to bury her heart deep where no one can touch it. One clear day at the livestock market, the richest rancher in 3 valleys leaned against a post, eyeing the crowd. His name was Torin Vark. They called him the Iron Bull because he was strong, reserved, and fearsome when rage took hold. He owned land as far as a horse could gallop in a day. He'd once been wed, though no one spoke of his wife. He'd noticed Leela before, seen how she kept her gaze low but never let it shatter. This time he saw more. A butcher's nephew, named Holt, shoved Leela hard into the dirt for brushing near his stall. She fell before everyone. She didn't cry out. Blood trickled down her chin as she struggled to rise. Some boys hooted like it was a sport. Torin stepped off the post and moved through the crowd with slow, deliberate strides. He stopped before Holt and stared at him like a hawk eyeing a trembling hare. "You finished?" Torin asked. Holt smirked. "She ain't your business." Torin spat a piece of sarsaparilla into the dust. Then he struck Holt once. Just once, hard. The man crumpled without a sound. Silence settled heavy. Dust drifted around them like the world held its breath. He turned to Leela and offered a weathered hand. She didn't take it. Trust was a thing she no longer gave. So he knelt beside her. His voice stayed even, steady. "This ain't kindness, and this ain't pity. I need a wife and I'm done searching. Say yes, and no one will ever lay a hand on you again." Leela scanned the crowd. The town watched with greedy, hateful eyes. She tasted blood on her tongue. She thought of the lean-to behind the cooper's shop, the nights trembling in the cold, the laughter at her back. She nodded once. They were married the next dusk. No chapel, no loud promises, just a paper signed by the deputy and a new ring slipped onto her finger by hands that shook for only a moment. Leela rode with Torin to his ranch that night. The wind stung her face, but she didn't flinch. His home was a sturdy house of thick timber and stone, standing firm against the vast plains. Inside, everything felt chilled. There was a locked bedroom door at the hall's end, a pot of soup left cold on the stove, untouched. Torin didn't touch her. He spoke little. He asked nothing of her, but space. Day after day, he worked his ranch from before dawn until stars claimed the sky. When she coughed, he fetched water. When her hands cracked from scrubbing, he brought gloves. When she was too weary to stand, he let her rest without a word. He never raised his voice. He never raised his hand. The house was quiet, filled with a silence that wasn't cruel. It was a silence building something slow but solid. Leela didn't trust him yet. Trust was a seed needing time and warmth. But she slept without fear for the first time in years. That alone felt like a gift heavy enough to buckle her knees. And deep inside, a question stirred. What kind of man saves a woman battered by a whole town? And what kind of past does he carry? Hey, I'm curious. Where are you all listening from right now? Let me know in the comments. It's amazing to see how far this story travels. Leela woke each morning to the sound of hoofbeats and the scent of dust rising with the sun. Torrin was always up before first light, already out mending fences or herding cattle. He left quietly, returned quietly, and kept his distance. Not a cold distance, more like he feared breaking something delicate. Leela worked every corner of the ranch house spotless. She scrubbed floors until her hands throbbed. She washed linen stiff with old lye. She patched drapes and mended worn shirts. Keeping busy kept her heart from dwelling on the past. Weeks passed. The nights were still. No footsteps stalking her, no fists lurking in the shadows. For the first time, she could breathe without dread. Still, she watched Torrin closely. There were things he didn't say, truths he locked away. There was a grave beneath the pear tree, its stone worn and nameless. She once saw him standing there, shoulders heavy, eyes lost in memories he wouldn't share. When he caught her looking, he only said she hated roses, said they smelled like funerals. Then he walked away. Leela didn't ask who he meant. She didn't need to. Sorrow knows sorrow. Life on the ranch taught her skills she never knew she'd need. She learned how to wash clothes in the stream behind the house, cook meals with what the land offered, and mend saddles with leather strips. When chores were done, she stepped outside, where the endless sky swallowed the world's edges. One morning she followed Torrin to the barn. She wanted to help, not because he asked, but because helping made her feel less like a shadow. He didn't stop her when she saddled a mule and rode out beside him. The wind bit her eyes, but she felt alive crossing open fields far from cruel stares. Torrin showed her how to mend fences and check cattle hooves. He pointed out where sweetgrass grew near the bluff and where coyotes sometimes prowled. They spoke little. Words weren't necessary. The silence between them felt safe now. One afternoon, Leela said, "Teach me to shoot." She refused to be helpless again. Never again. Torrin paused and fetched a rifle from the cellar. He placed it gently in her hands. "It'll kick like a mule," he warned. She aimed at a tin cup on the fence. The gun fired, the recoil knocked her flat in the dirt. For the first time in years, she laughed. Not loud, not wild, just a small sound. But Torrin turned away quick, like he was hiding a smile he didn't want her to see. By summer, Lila could shoot true and skin a hare quick. Folks in town noticed. They stopped jeering. They stopped touching her. Some stepped aside. Others stared, wary and puzzled by this quiet woman who no longer bowed her head. But fear in others always comes from somewhere darker. One evening, a knock came at the ranch door. Torrin was still out checking the fields. Lila opened it and found a stranger standing there, reeking of liquor and sweat, his grin sharp and predatory. "So, you're the new wife?" he said, his voice dripping with trouble. Lila stayed silent. The man tried to step forward. She raised the rifle. He froze, surprise flashing in his eyes. "Tell your husband Cal Varn came callin'," he said. His smile turned vicious. "He owes me, and I collect what's mine." Then he turned and rode off. Lila locked the door. When Torrin returned, she told him everything. His jaw tightened. His eyes turned to steel. "He's not wrong," Torrin said low. "There were debts once, bad ones, men you don't want to cross in the dark." Lila waited for more. He said nothing else. After that night, she looked toward the far hills more often. The wind felt colder. The land seemed to hold its breath. Winter came early that year. Snow buried the fences. Feed dwindled. 2 ranch hands quit, spooked by whispers carried on icy air. Lila and Torrin worked through blizzards with scarves over their faces and lanterns swinging from saddles. She helped bury cattle that froze standing. She sewed his jacket when briars ripped it open. He bandaged her hands when the cold split her skin. They slept in the same bed now. No touching. Just two souls sharing the same hope for morning. One night, in the quiet dark, Lila spoke. "Do you miss her?" she asked. Torin didn't stir. "Every day," he said. Lila stared at the ceiling. She understood then that his heart wasn't ready to love again. Maybe it never would be. But surviving together had forged a bond deeper than words. Their peace didn't last. A letter arrived at the ranch, delivered by the preacher's son. The church had branded Lila a witch again. Townsfolk wanted blood to cleanse curses they'd invented. Torin read the letter once, then tossed it into the fire. The next morning, he rode into Dust Hollow with Lila behind him. He strode into the church, stood before every fearful face, and spoke in a voice that rattled the walls. "If any one of you touches her again, I'll bury this town myself." When he turned and walked out, people parted like death walked with him. But hatred, once roused, doesn't quiet easily. That night, someone nailed a dead hare to their door. Lila's hands didn't tremble as she pulled it down. She scrubbed the blood off the wood, loaded her rifle, and set it beside the bed. She lay down beside Torin, turning to face him for the first time. His eyes opened. He looked at her. The space between them was no longer empty. It was a vow the world would soon try to break. The winter wind wailed like a warning through the bare trees around the ranch. Lila slept with a rifle by her cheek. Every night she listened for hoofbeats, for men hiding in the shadows, for the ghost of fear she once knew too well. Peace is never given, she'd learned. It must be fought for. Weeks passed before the danger showed its face again. One morning, the cattle scattered like they sensed a predator. Smoke rose from the west pasture. Torin and Lila rode hard toward the blaze, sweat freezing on their faces, though snow still blanketed the ground. The fire roared through dry brush like a starving beast. They beat it down with soaked blankets and dirt until the flames died to charred embers. 3 cows lay burned in the grass. On a flat stone by the stream, someone had carved a single word: witch. Torin's jaw tightened. He said nothing. But that night he sharpened his knife again and again until his fingers bled. She cleaned the blade and wrapped his hands in cloth without a word. They understood each other. The silent vow between them grew stronger. The next day they rode into town. The tavern went silent the moment Lila stepped inside. A drunk man in the corner sneered and muttered something about hexes. Torin hit him so hard his body crumpled like a discarded coat. The sheriff watched from his porch and didn't move. Fear now worked in their favor. But fear doesn't erase old enemies.
3 nights later, Torin came home late with mud on his boots and blood crusted on his wrist. Lila saw a shadow in his eyes, darker than night. There was a name he hadn't yet spoken, a name the stranger at the door had warned about: Cal Varn. Lila found Torin on the porch, staring toward the far bluff. "He's coming," Torin whispered. "He wants to take everything. The land, the cattle, you." Lila felt her stomach twist, not with fear, but with rage so deep it tasted like metal. "I won't be taken," she said. "You could run," he told her. "Ride west. Find a place that doesn't know your name." Lila shook her head. "I didn't marry you to run. I've run enough." The next evening, hoofbeats thundered across the dark hills. 5 riders appeared on the bluff, shadows against a blood-red sunset. They stared down at the ranch house like coyotes eyeing prey. Then they turned back into the night, a warning. The second visit came with bullets. Glass shattered in the kitchen. A fence post splintered inches from Lila's shoulder. She dropped to the porch and fired, hitting one of the horses. The animal screamed. Men cursed. Gunfire lit the dark like lightning. Torin, shot in the arm, fought on his feet, refusing to fall. Then silence. They vanished into the night again. Lila dragged Torin inside, bandaged his wound while he grit his teeth. "They'll return," she said. "Yes," he answered, "and I may not stop them next time. Then I will." Before dawn, Lila saddled the mule. She packed food, water, and the rifle. Torn tried to stand, but pain felled him. "You don't know what Varn is," he breathed. "I know what I'm not. I'm not weak anymore." Leela rode alone toward the canyon beyond the bluff, following the blood Varn had left behind. The land there was barren and twisted, the trees bare like broken bones. She tracked footprints through dust and briar until she found their camp in a hollow of stone. She waited until night, then slipped into the shadows like a ghost. She moved without sound, the knife steady in her hand. The first man never saw her coming. The second died before his scream could finish. Gunfire erupted, horses reared. Cal Varn stepped into the firelight, a cruel smile glowing. "You think you can end what we started?" he asked. "I already did," Leela replied. They circled the fire, flames dancing in their eyes. He drew first, bullet grazing her arm. She fired back and missed. The air tasted of smoke and death. Varn lunged, they fell hard. He struck her face, but she bit down on his hand until bones snapped. With all her strength, she drove the knife into his ribs, once, twice. He gasped, mouth wide in shock before falling still. The world slowed. Leela rose, trembling but unbroken. The fire burned their camp to ash. She took Varn's gun as proof and left the canyon behind. The journey back nearly broke her. Fever blurred her vision. Mud swallowed her boots. Vultures circled, waiting for her to fall. But Leela didn't stop. She had a husband waiting. She had a home. She collapsed at the ranch gate as dawn painted the sky gold. Torn carried her inside. He cleaned her wounds, stayed by her side until her breathing steadied. On the fourth morning, Leela opened her eyes. "It's done," she whispered. "I know," Torn replied. He lifted his hand to her cheek, hesitant but gentle. "You are safe." Safe. A word she never thought she'd feel. Time passed. The snow melted. The ranch healed. Folks in Dust Hollow no longer looked at Leela with hate. They looked with fear, respect, and something close to shame. One day, a young girl from town arrived at their door, silent, bruises fading down her arms. Leela looked at her and understood. "Come in," she said. The girl stayed. She learned to ride, to work, to live without fear. She learned strength by watching Leela. Seasons turned. The pear tree bloomed with white flowers like soft lanterns. Torrin grew older. Leela stood taller. When the time came, she buried Torn beneath the tree beside the old stone, marking his grave with the shape of a bull. She stood long in the wind, her heart breaking and healing at once. Leela didn't cry weakness. Crying wasn't weakness. She walked back to the house, rifle against her shoulder, the girl beside her. No one dared come near their land without cause. Leela had been beaten, she had been cursed, she had been treated like nothing. But she survived. She stood up. She became someone the whole frontier would never forget. And now she was the one who decided what peace looked like. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and subscribe for more tales like Leela's. It means the world to keep sharing these stories with you all.